They made fun of her. They said she didn't have the body to be a model, but when she stepped onto the runway, everyone fell silent. Lily didn't walk like the others. She did it with history, with strength, with identity. And when she finished, her walk, even the harshest critics applauded. What did they see? Discover it in this story that will touch your soul. Before we begin, like and subscribe so we can keep creating stories like this one. Lily Ramirez never went unnoticed on the streets of Portland, though she wished with all her soul that she could. Since childhood, each step she took through, the colorful cobblestone alleys of the city seemed to awaken stares, whispers, and sometimes poorly disguised laughter. It wasn't because of her vibrant personality or her melodious voice, but because of her prominent curves that, in a world obsessed with thinness, made her a constant target of judgment. Lily, haven't you thought about, taking care of yourself a little? Mrs. Miller, the owner of the bakery where she bought sweet rolls every Sunday, once suggested. A niece of mine took some herbs recommended by the healer from Springfield and dropped 3 sizes in a month. Lily smiled kindly, as she always did, while inside she felt herself crumbling a little more. At 19, she had perfected the art of appearing unperturbed by comments that, like small needles, pricked her self-esteem. The apartment she shared, with her grandmother Rose in the historic downtown, was her only refuge. There, between walls adorned with traditional textiles and the perpetual aroma of hot chocolate, she could simply be herself, without judgments, without sidelong glances. "My dear, why such a long face?" Rose asked that afternoon as she knitted by the window, where the Portland sunset turned everything to gold. "It's nothing, Grandma," Lily replied, placing her bag on the carved wooden table. "I'm just tired." Rose looked up from her knitting and observed her granddaughter with eyes that seemed to see beyond words. "Your mother, may she rest in peace, had exactly your same figure," the old woman commented with a nostalgic smile. "And she was the most beautiful woman in all of Portland. When she danced at the town festivals, even the saints seemed to watch her." Lily sat next to her grandmother, allowing those words to wrap around her like an embrace. "But that was before, Grandma. Now everything is different." "Different?" Rose set her knitting aside. "The only thing that has changed is the eyes with which people look, not beauty itself." That night, while arranging clothes in the Elegance boutique where she worked as a saleswoman, Lily faced the daily irony. Being surrounded by beautiful clothes she could never wear. The store, located on the exclusive Madison Avenue, didn't offer sizes that could accommodate her curves. However, it was a job that allowed her to pay her expenses and help her grandmother with medicines. "Lily, I need you to finish arranging the display window before you leave," shouted Mrs. Sullivan, the owner, from the back room. "The new collection arrives tomorrow, and everything must be perfect." "Yes, Mrs. Sullivan, I'm almost finished." Carefully, Lily arranged a delicate silk dress on a skeletal mannequin, wondering how it would feel to wear something like that. As she adjusted the folds of the fabric, she noticed someone had placed a poster in the main window. She approached to see it better and felt her heart skip a beat. "Casting for new models. Spring-summer fashion show by Portland designers. Diversity matters. This Sunday, Grand Lux Hotel, 10 a.m. Her fingers brushed the paper, as if touching it could make that opportunity more real. "Diversity matters," a voice repeated in her head. Could it be possible? Could they be looking for someone like her? Mrs. Sullivan appeared beside her, following the direction of her gaze. "Interesting, isn't it?" she commented with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The Beauty Without Borders agency is revolutionizing the fashion world in the Northwest. They say they're looking for new, different faces." Lily nodded silently, unable to express the whirlwind of emotions rising within her. "You should apply," Mrs. Sullivan added in a tone that Lily couldn't quite interpret. "You've always had presence." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. The idea of applying for a modeling casting seemed simultaneously absurd and perfect. Absurd, because it went against everything society had made her believe about herself. Perfect because it represented everything she secretly longed for, to be truly seen, not as an anomaly, but as someone whose beauty deserved to be celebrated. The next morning during breakfast, she gathered the courage to share her thoughts with her grandmother. "Grandma, do you think someone like me could be a model?" Rose looked at her over her cup of hot chocolate with an indecipherable expression. "A model? Like those skinny girls in the magazines you buy?" "Well, not exactly like them," Lily fidgeted with her napkin. "There's a casting this Sunday. They say they're looking for diversity." The old woman remained silent for a moment, as if carefully weighing her words. "Lily, in my almost 80 years of life, I've learned that dreams don't distinguish between shapes or sizes," she finally said. "Your grandfather Edward always said that the world is full of closed doors, but none are really closed to those who have the courage to push hard enough." Lily felt something ignite inside her, a small flame that had been smothered for a long time. "So you think I should try?" "I think you should do everything that makes you feel you're honoring who you truly are," Rose replied with a wise smile. "And if someone tells you that you don't belong somewhere, that's all the more reason for you to stay there until you prove them wrong." Sunday dawned with clear skies and a radiant sun, as if even the weather wanted to encourage her. Lily had carefully chosen her outfit, a hand-embroidered blouse that highlighted her shoulders, paired with a black skirt that proudly embraced her hips. Her makeup was subtle but effective, highlighting her large dark eyes and full lips. "You look beautiful," her grandmother assured her, as she adjusted a rebellious lock of her jet-black hair. "Go and show them who Lily Ramirez is." The Grand Lux Hotel, a former convent converted into one of Portland's most exclusive hotels, was bustling with activity when Lily arrived. Dozens of young women, almost all as thin as reeds, were lining up to register. For a moment, fear threatened to paralyze her. But then she remembered her grandmother's words and moved forward with determination toward the registration table. "Name," requested a woman with thin glasses without looking up from her computer. "Lily Ramirez." The woman raised her eyes and looked her up and down with an evaluating gaze that Lily knew too well. "Do you have experience as a model?" "No, it's my first time." "Measurements?" Lily took a deep breath before answering, preparing for the reaction she knew would come. "Bust 40, waist 35, hips 43. The woman arched an eyebrow and looked at her colleague, who discreetly displayed a mocking smile. "All right," the woman finally said, handing her a badge with a number. "Wait your turn in the main hall." Upon entering the room where the casting would take place, Lily felt all eyes on her. Some girls whispered among themselves, others observed her with curiosity or disbelief. She found a seat in the last row and tried to control the racing beats of her heart. Minutes later, an elegant woman in her 40s took the small stage installed in the center of the room. Her imposing presence silenced conversations as she passed. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Carmen Villanueva, director of the Beauty Without Borders agency and coordinator of this fashion show. Before we begin, I want to clarify something. This is not a conventional casting. We are looking for faces and bodies that tell stories, that represent the true diversity of our America. If you came thinking this is just about perfect measurements, you can leave right now." A murmur ran through the room. Lily felt her heart accelerate. Was it possible that she really had a chance? "You will go up in groups of 5. You will walk to the end of the runway, strike a pose that reflects your personality, and return. No complications, no artifices. We want to see who you really are." As the numbers were called, Lily carefully observed each applicant. Some walked, with the confidence of those who have already stepped on many runways. Others did so timidly, as if each step were an apology for being there. From her seat, she could see how Carmen Villanueva made notes on a tablet, her face revealing little about her impressions. "Number 57, announced an assistant. Lily looked at her badge. 58. Her turn would be next. Her stomach tied itself in a knot of nerves as she watched a thin, tall young woman step onto the stage with the natural elegance of a gazelle. "I don't understand what someone like her is doing here," she heard a voice whisper nearby, not realizing that Lily could hear her perfectly. It was one of Carmen's assistants, who was leaning toward another woman on the team. "You know how Carmen is with her revolutionary ideas," the other replied with disdain. "But let's be honest, who's going to want to see those bodies on a runway?" Lily felt the air thicken in her lungs. For a moment she considered getting up and leaving. What was she doing there? Hadn't she already learned that some spaces weren't made for people like her? "Number 58, called the assistant. The silence that followed extended for several seconds. Lily remained motionless as if her body refused to respond. "Number 58? The assistant repeated, scanning the room with her gaze. It was then that Lily remembered the words her mother used to repeat to her before an illness took her away prematurely. "Your body is not an apology, my dear. It's a gift that deserves to be shown to the world with pride." She stood up. The murmur that ran through the room was immediate. She felt all eyes on her as she moved toward the stage. Some eyes reflected curiosity, others amusement or even contempt. But it didn't matter anymore. For the first time in a long time, Lily wasn't looking at others. She was completely focused on herself. As she climbed the 3 steps leading to the small runway, she stumbled slightly. The giggles didn't take long to follow. But instead of being embarrassed, Lily smiled naturally, as if that stumble were part of her presentation. And then she began to walk. She didn't imitate the stylized gait of professional models. Instead, she walked as she did through the streets of Portland, with her own rhythm cadenced, which made the beautiful embroidered blouse move as if it had a life of its own. Her hips marked a beat that spoke of generations of strong women, of ancestral dances under the full moon, of a powerful femininity that didn't ask permission to exist. When she reached the end of the runway, instead of striking a studied pose, she simply stopped, lifted her chin and looked directly at Carmen Villanueva. It wasn't a defiant or pleading look. It was the look of someone who had finally decided to see herself clearly. The silence in the room was absolute. Even those who seconds before were laughing now seemed captivated by that presence which, against all odds, emanated an undeniable beauty. Lily held Carmen's gaze for a few seconds that seemed eternal, before gracefully turning and returning the way she had come. When she stepped off the stage, conversations resumed with greater intensity. Lily returned to her seat, her heart beating so hard she feared it could be heard throughout the room. She didn't know if she had done well or poorly, only that for the first time she hadn't tried to hide, hadn't silently apologized for taking up space. "Interesting choice," commented a voice beside her, startling her. Lily turned to find a young woman with blue hair and multiple piercings who was looking at her with genuine interest. "I'm Flora," she introduced herself, extending a tattooed hand. "Your walk was different, in a good way." "Thanks, I guess," Lily responded, surprised by the friendly approach. "I'm Lily." "I know number 58, Flora smiled. "I'm 43, I went a while ago, but I think no one noticed me. It's hard to stand out being another thin, tall girl in a sea of thin, tall girls." That observation took Lily by surprise. She had never considered that invisibility could also be a problem for those who fit the standards. "I don't think Carmen will choose me," Lily confessed quietly. "I heard her assistants—" "Those harpies over there," Flora discreetly pointed, to the 2 women who had made the comments. "They're Elaine and Patricia, the nieces of the previous director. They're resentful because Carmen revolutionized the agency when she took control. They wanted to keep doing things the old way. Same faces, same bodies, same boring story." The casting continued for another hour. Finally, Carmen Villanueva returned to the stage. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her firm voice filling the space. "It has been inspiring to see so much diversity and authenticity. The results of this first phase will be communicated by email tonight. Those selected must report tomorrow at 9 a.m. for the second phase." As the participants began to disperse, Lily said goodbye to Flora and they exchanged phone numbers. She had made her first friend in that strange world, and that was already a small triumph. When she arrived home, her grandmother was waiting anxiously. "How did it go, my dear?" she asked, setting aside her knitting. "I don't know, Grandma," Lily responded honestly. It was intense. Some people didn't believe I should be there, but in the end, I felt that maybe, just maybe, I do belong in that place. That night, Lily couldn't concentrate on anything. Every few minutes she checked her email, although she knew it was too early to receive news. Her mind kept replaying the scene of her walk, wondering if she had been too informal, too much herself. Around midnight, when she had already decided to go to bed assuming she hadn't been selected, her phone emitted the characteristic sound of an incoming email. With her heart in her throat, Lily unlocked the screen. Dear Lily Ramirez, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the second phase of the casting. Your authenticity and natural presence have captured our attention. Please report tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the Grand Lux Hotel to continue with the process. Sincerely, Carmen Villanueva, Director of Beauty Without Borders. A cry of joy escaped her lips, waking her grandmother, who was dozing in the adjoining room. They selected me, Grandma, she exclaimed, showing her the message. I'm going to the second phase. Rose hugged her tightly, her eyes bright with pride. I knew you would, my dear. You have your mother's spirit. The next morning, Lily arrived at the hotel half an hour before the indicated time. To her surprise, Flora was already there, her unmistakable blue hair gathered in an elegant bun. You made it, Flora exclaimed upon seeing her, hugging her as if they were lifelong friends. I knew you would. Your walk was hypnotizing. You made it too, Lily pointed out with a smile. It seems that we both have something that Carmen values. The second phase turned out to be much more demanding than the first. The 20 selected participants had to perform several exercises, posing for photographs, improvising with different garments, and even answering personal questions in front of a video camera. I want to know who you really are, Carmen explained, as she watched them execute each task. I'm not interested in whether you can pretend to be models. I'm interested in whether you can be authentic in front of a camera, whether you can convey real emotions, whether you have a story to tell through your presence. For Lily, the most difficult exercise was standing in front of the camera and answering, "Why do you want to be a model?" The question caught her off guard. She hadn't prepared an elaborate response like other contestants, so she simply told the truth. I want to be a model because all my life I've been told, directly or indirectly, that my body doesn't deserve to be seen, she responded, her voice trembling slightly at first, but gaining firmness with each word. I want to prove that beauty isn't measured in sizes, but in the way a person inhabits their own body, with dignity and joy. I want other girls who grow up feeling invisible, or worse, too visible for the wrong reasons, to see that they can occupy spaces that the world tells them don't belong to them. A deep silence followed her words. Carmen, who had been observing from a corner, approached her when she finished. That's exactly the reason why we're doing this, she said quietly, just for Lily. We're not simply looking for pretty faces. We're looking for women who can change the narrative. At the end of that intense day, the 20 participants were gathered again. Fatigue was reflected in their faces, but also expectation. You have been extraordinary, Carmen began. Each of you has something unique to offer. Unfortunately, I can only select 10 for the final show. The names will be announced tomorrow at noon. Meanwhile, I ask you to reflect on what you have learned today about yourselves. Lily and Flora decided to walk together to the city square, Portland's main plaza, to clear their minds after so much tension. Do you think they'll choose us? Lily asked, as they sat on a bench, watching tourists and locals strolling under the warm afternoon. Sans, I don't know, Flora responded frankly. But you know what? I don't care as much as I did before. Today, when I answered that question about why I want to be a model, I realized I was doing it for the wrong reasons. What do you mean? I always thought being a model would make me special, would give me value, Flora explained, playing with one of her piercings. But listening to you speak, I understood that value doesn't come from being chosen by others. It comes from choosing yourself first. Those words resonated deeply with Lily. Wasn't that what she had done by showing up for the casting? Choosing herself, despite the fear and uncertainty? Anyway, Flora continued with a mischievous smile, I think you will definitely be among the 10. You were the only one in that room who wasn't trying to be someone else. And that, my new friend, is the most refreshing thing I've seen in a long time. The following noon arrived with torturous slowness. Lily had slept little, tormented by dreams in which she climbed onto the runway and the platform crumbled beneath her feet while the audience laughed mercilessly. Upon waking, her nerves were on edge, but she forced herself to remain calm while waiting for the email that would decide her fate. Rose, sensing her granddaughter's anxiety, prepared her a mint tea and sat across from her at the small kitchen table. "My dear, whatever happens today, remember that you've already won," she said softly. "What do you mean, Grandma?" "A week ago, you wouldn't have even considered applying for that casting. You've already defeated your worst enemy, the fear of trying." Lily reflected on those words as she drank her tea. It was true. Regardless of the result, she had taken a step she never thought possible. She had defied the internal and external voices that told her she didn't belong in that world. When her phone vibrated announcing a new email, she almost dropped it from nerves. With trembling hands, she opened the message. "Dear Lily Ramirez, after careful deliberation, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected to participate in the Spring-Summer Fashion Show by Portland designers. Your authenticity and presence were decisive factors in this decision. Rehearsals will begin tomorrow at 8 a.m. at the St. Paul Cultural Center. The show will take place next Saturday at the Grand Lux Hotel. Congratulations, Carmen Villanueva, Director of Beauty Without Borders." A choked cry escaped her throat. She had done it. She was among the 10 selected. "Grandma," she exclaimed, showing her the message. "They chose me." Rose hugged her tightly, her eyes bright with emotion. "I'm so proud of you, my dear. Your mother would be radiant with happiness." Immediately, Lily called Flora to find out if she had also been selected. "Yes," her friend squealed on the other end of the line. "I can't believe it. You too." "Me too," Lily confirmed, feeling a wave of relief knowing she wouldn't face this new stage alone. "This deserves a celebration," Flora declared. "I'm inviting you for hot chocolate at Spring Cafe. What do you say?" That afternoon, while sharing a table on the cafe terrace with a view of Portland Cathedral, Lily and Flora exchanged their personal stories. They discovered that, despite their physical differences, both had struggled with deep insecurities. "People assume that because I'm thin, I've never had problems with my image," Flora confessed, thoughtfully stirring her chocolate. "But throughout my adolescence, I felt like a shapeless stick, without curves, without anything that made me feel feminine. I dyed my hair blue and got these piercings to divert attention from what I considered my defective body." Lily listened with surprise. She had never imagined that someone like Flora, who seemed to fit perfectly into conventional beauty standards, could feel insecure. "I think we all have our own battle with the mirror," Lily reflected. "The difference is that some battles are more visible than others." The first day of rehearsals at the St. Paul Cultural Center, a former convent converted into an artistic space, was a revelation for Lily. The 10 selected models represented a mosaic of diversity, different skin tones, heights, builds, and ages. There was a 60-year-old woman with an impressive silver mane, a young woman with vitiligo, whose patches formed unique patterns on her skin, a girl in a wheelchair with a magnetic presence. Carmen gathered them in a circle at the beginning of the day. "Each of you is here because you have something unique to contribute," she began. "This is not a conventional fashion show. It's a statement, a manifesto about true beauty. The designers have created pieces specifically for each of you, celebrating your bodies as they are." A murmur of excitement ran through the group. The idea of wearing clothes designed especially for them, instead of trying to fit into garments designed for an idealized body type, was revolutionary. "During this week, we will work not only on runway techniques, but also on connecting with yourselves," Carmen continued. "I want that when you step onto that runway on Saturday, you do so with the absolute certainty that you belong there." The rehearsals were intense. Lily learned about posture, expression, rhythm, and how to move confidently in front of an audience. But the most challenging aspects were not the technical ones, but the self-confidence exercises that Carmen incorporated into each session. "Today we'll do something different," Carmen announced on the third day. "I want you to stand in front of the mirror and say out loud 3 things you love about your bodies. No apologies, no qualifiers, with absolute pride." That exercise turned out to be surprisingly difficult for everyone. When it was Lily's turn, she stood in front of the full-length mirror and took a deep breath. "I love my wide hips because they are the heritage of generations of strong women," she began, her voice barely audible at first. "I love my arms because they can warmly embrace those I love. I love my face because it reflects my mother's smile." With each affirmation, her voice gained strength and confidence. When she finished, she realized she had tears in her eyes, but they weren't from sadness. They were from liberation. On Thursday, just 2 days before the show, Lily attended her first fitting. The designer who would work with her was Matthew Torres, a young Portland talent known for his creations that fused the traditional with the contemporary. "Your body is a perfect canvas for my designs," Matthew told her as he took additional measurements. "The lines I'm thinking of creating need curves to come to life." It was the first time someone had spoken of her figure as an advantage and not as a problem to conceal. Lily felt a warmth expanding in her chest as Matthew showed her the sketches of what would be her outfit. A majestic dress inspired by Native American traditions, with embroidery that would tell ancestral stories through each stitch. "I want that when you walk down that runway you don't just show a dress," Matthew explained passionately. "I want you to show centuries of tradition, of resistance, of beauty that transcends passing fads." That night, as she returned home, Lily was surprised to find herself thinking not about the nerves of the imminent show, but about how her perception of herself had changed in just a week. Suddenly, her body was no longer an obstacle to overcome, but a vehicle to express something bigger than herself. Upon arriving home, she found her grandmother conversing with a woman whom at first she didn't recognize. Coming closer, she realized with surprise that it was Carmen Villanueva. "Lily," Rose exclaimed upon seeing her, "Miss Carmen has come to talk to you." "Lily, sorry for showing up without notice," Carmen said, standing up. "But there's something important I wanted to discuss with you in person." With a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, Lily sat next to them. "I've been observing your evolution this week," Carmen began, "and there's something special about you, something that goes beyond your physical presence. You have a natural ability to connect with the audience, to convey authentic emotions." Lily thanked her for the compliment, though she didn't understand where Carmen was going. "The reason for my visit is to propose something to you," the director continued. "I want you to be the main model of the show. You will close the event with the most important piece of the collection." The shock left Lily speechless. Being the main model, the one who closes a show, was the highest possible honor. It was generally reserved for the most experienced or recognized model. "But there are other girls with more experience," Lily stammered. "I've never—" "Precisely," Carmen interrupted with a smile. "This show is about breaking paradigms. What better way to do it than having someone who represents everything we want to communicate as our central figure?" Rose, who had been listening in silence, took her granddaughter's hand. "My Lily has always had her own light," she said with pride. "It just took someone who knew how to see it." "You don't have to answer now," Carmen added upon seeing Lily's overwhelmed expression. "Think about it tonight and let me know tomorrow." After Carmen left, Lily sat on the small balcony of the apartment, contemplating the city lights as she processed what had happened. Part of her was terrified by the responsibility, another part exultant at the opportunity. "What are you thinking about, my dear?" Rose asked, joining her with 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate. "I'm afraid, Grandma," Lily confessed. "What if I'm not ready? What if I make a fool of myself?" "Fear and courage always go hand in hand," the old woman replied wisely. "You can't be brave without feeling fear first." "But there's so much at stake." "The only thing really at stake is your own truth," Rose said, looking at her intensely. "If you go out on that runway pretending to be someone else, you will have lost even if everyone applauds you. If you go out being authentically you, You will have won even if you stumble. That night, Lily had a vivid dream. She saw herself walking down an endless runway, but she didn't feel fear but a strange peace. On both sides, blurred faces observed her. With each step she took, some of those faces became clearer. Girls and women of all ages, shapes and colors, who looked at her with eyes bright with hope and recognition. Upon waking, she knew exactly what her answer would be. On Friday, the last day before the big event, the St. Paul Cultural Center was a hive of activity. Designers, makeup artists, producers, and models came and went in a chaotic but precise choreography. When Lily arrived, she was surprised by the number of people working to make everything perfect. "There's our star," Flora exclaimed upon seeing her approaching with a hurried step. "Everyone's talking about you being the main model. It's incredible, Lily." Lily had communicated her decision to Carmen early that morning, and the news seemed to have spread quickly among everyone involved in the show. "I'm terrified," Lily confessed quietly. "What if I'm not up to it?" "Please," Flora rolled her eyes. "You were born for this." "I saw it from the first moment, when we were all trying to look like professional models and you were simply being yourself." A young assistant approached them, consulting a tablet. "Lily Ramirez, Matthew Torres is waiting for you for the final." Fitting in the main room. The dress that Matthew had created for her left Lily breathless. It was a masterpiece of reinterpreted traditional textiles, a gala blouse transformed into a haute couture dress with embroidery representing Oregon's flora and fauna in vibrant colored threads on an intense black background. The upper part embraced her shoulders and elegantly highlighted her bust, while the skirt cascaded to the floor, with strategic openings that would allow glimpses of her legs while walking. "I have no words," Lily murmured upon seeing herself in the mirror, barely recognizing herself. "It's a dress worthy of the one who wears it," Matthew responded with satisfaction. "Each stitch tells a story, as you will when wearing it." The day passed between general rehearsals, last-minute adjustments, and sessions with the makeup and hair teams to define the complete look of each model. When they finally finished, night had already fallen over Portland. "Remember, tomorrow you must all be here at 3 p.m., Carmen announced before dismissing them. "The show starts at 8, but we need time to prepare without rushing. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow we make history." As she walked back home, Lily felt like she was living in a parallel reality. How was it possible that she, the same one who just a few days ago was selling clothes she could never wear, was now preparing to be the main model in a designer's show? Upon arriving at the apartment, she found her grandmother talking on the phone. When Rose saw her, she quickly said goodbye to her interlocutor. "It was your Aunt Diana from Eugene," she explained. "I told her about your show and she's so proud that she wants to come see you. She'll arrive tomorrow with your cousin, Marissa." Lily felt a mixture of joy and nervousness. Her Aunt Diana was her mother's older sister, a woman of strong opinions who had always been quite traditional in her ideas about how a woman should be and behave. "What does she think about me being a model?" Lily asked with some apprehension. "At first she was surprised," Rose admitted, "but when I explained that it's not just any show but one that celebrates diversity and beauty in all its forms, she became very enthusiastic. She said your mother would be proud." Those words comforted Lily. Her mother, Hope, had been a woman ahead of her time who had always encouraged her to dream without limits, despite the restrictions of her environment. That night, as she tried to sleep, Lily mentally reviewed everything she had learned in the last few days. The runway techniques, the correct way to pose at the end of the walk, how to maintain the proper expression, but above all, she remembered Carmen's words. "When you go out on that runway, don't play a role. Be yourself with all your strength and vulnerability." Sleep was slow to come, but when it finally did, it was deep and restful. Saturday morning dawned with clear skies and a radiant sun, as if even the weather wanted to cooperate with the big day. Lily decided to spend the hours before the show doing something that always centered her, helping her grandmother with her knitting. "Teach me that new stitch you were practicing, Grandma," she asked, sitting next to Rose on the small balcony. The Old woman smiled. pleased by her granddaughter's interest even on such an important day. "This is a special stitch," she explained, as her wrinkled but agile fingers skillfully worked the wool. "It's called the mountain's embrace. It's difficult at first, but once you master it, it creates patterns so strong they can last for generations." Lily observed attentively, trying to replicate the movements. Knitting had always been a shared language between them, a way of transmitting knowledge that went far beyond the technique itself. "You know," Rose continued as they worked, "your great-grandmother Ruth was a weaver of ceremonial garments. She said that each stitch was a prayer, each color a story, each garment a map of the soul of its creator." "You never told me that," Lily commented, surprised. "There are many stories of the women in our family that you don't know yet," the old woman responded with an enigmatic smile. "Strong women who, each in her own way, defied what was expected of them." As the time to present herself at the cultural center approached, Lily felt anxiety growing inside her again. But now it was different. It was no longer the paralyzing fear that had always accompanied her, but a vibrant, almost electric energy that ran through her body. "It's time for me to go, Grandma," she finally said, leaving her knitting half-finished. "Will you come later with Aunt Diana?" "We'll be there, my dear," Rose assured, squeezing her hand tightly, "in the front row, watching you shine." When Lily arrived at the cultural center, the space had been completely transformed. What was once a sober colonial courtyard now looked like the stage of a high-fashion event. An immaculate white runway traversed the center, surrounded by chairs arranged in tiers, strategically placed lights, and a technical team adjusting the final details of sound and lighting. In the improvised backstage, the controlled chaos was even greater than the day before. Makeup artists, stylists, and assistants ran from one side to the other, while the models underwent the final touches. Lily was immediately led to her station, where a complete team was waiting for her. For the next few hours, she let herself be transformed by expert hands. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo with braids that incorporated fresh flowers, her face made up to highlight her natural features, with touches of color that echoed the embroidery of her dress. "Nothing too artificial," Carmen had instructed the makeup team. "We want them to look real, authentic, not like porcelain dolls." As the time of the show approached, Lily could feel how the tension increased in the environment. Some models practiced their poses one last time, others meditated in silence, and a few seemed on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Flora, already dressed in an impressive ensemble that combined traditional Native American elements with an avant-garde touch, approached Lily. "How are you feeling?" she asked, sitting next to her while they had a moment of waiting. "Like I'm about to jump into the void without a parachute," Lily confessed with a nervous laugh. "But strangely, I don't want to turn back." "That's because you know you can fly," Flora replied with a smile. "We all can, but some of us need someone to push us first." Half an hour before the start, Carmen gathered the entire team for some final words. "What we're about to do goes beyond a simple fashion show," she began, her voice loaded with contained emotion. "We're questioning centuries of prejudice about who can represent beauty and in what form. Each of you, with your presence on that runway, will be opening a path for others to follow in your footsteps. Don't forget that when you go out there." Then she approached Lily specifically. "Ready to close the show?" she asked quietly. "I think so," Lily responded, trying to control the trembling in her voice. "Although I still don't understand why you chose me." Carmen looked at her fixedly, as if evaluating whether she should share something she had kept to herself. "Because you remind me of someone," she finally said. "Of myself, 25 years ago, when all the modeling agencies in New York rejected me for being too ethnic, too dark, too short. They told me I would never belong in this world." Lily looked at her surprised. She would never have imagined that this elegant and self-assured woman could have faced rejections similar to hers. "And what did you do?" she asked with genuine curiosity. "Exactly what you're doing now," Carmen smiled. "I refused to accept the limits others wanted to impose on me. I studied fashion design, worked for the best houses in Europe, and when I had enough power, I returned to America to change the rules of the game, to create spaces where no one has to apologize for being who they are." Before Lily could respond, the assistants began calling the models to form the exit line. The show was about to begin. Through a small opening in the curtain that separated the backstage from the runway, Lily could see that the place was completely full. She identified her grandmother in the front row, next to her Aunt Diana and her cousin Marissa. She also recognized several personalities from the world of fashion and culture, critics, journalists, influencers with their phones ready to capture every moment. Her heart was beating so hard she feared it could be heard above the music that began to play, marking the beginning of the event. As the main model, Lily would be the last to come out, the grand finale of the night. That meant she would have to wait while watching all her companions shine on the runway. One by one, the models went out, each appearance received with enthusiastic applause from the audience. The diversity that Carmen had sought was evident. Different bodies, ages, skin tones, even ways of moving, but all shared the same attitude of pride and confidence. When Flora went out, the audience reacted with special enthusiasm to her unique way of walking, which combined classic runway techniques with movements that evoked traditional dances. Upon returning backstage, she winked at Lily. "It's your turn, star," she whispered, giving her a quick hug. "Go and conquer them." And then the moment arrived. The music changed to a composition that mixed contemporary sounds with traditional instruments. The lights dimmed momentarily, creating expectation. The presenter announced, and to close this celebration of diversity and Portland beauty, with an exclusive design by Matthew Torres, Lily Ramirez. Lily stepped forward, and the world seemed to stop. The light bathed her completely, revealing the splendor of the dress that Matthew had created especially for her. A murmur ran through the audience, followed by absolute silence, as if everyone were holding their breath at the same time. For a fleeting instant, fear threatened to paralyze her. So many eyes fixed on her, so many expectations. But then, among the crowd, she found her grandmother, Rose's gaze. Those wise and loving eyes transmitted a silent message to her. "You belong here, my dear," and she began to walk. It wasn't the technically perfect walk she had practiced all week. It was something better, a gait that combined the security learned with her natural essence, with that unique cadence that had always been part of her, but which she had previously tried to disguise. Her hips marked their own rhythm that made the dress come alive. The embroidery seemed to dance with each step, telling ancestral stories through movement. The initial silence transformed into murmurs of admiration that grew until becoming spontaneous applause. But Lily barely heard them. She was completely immersed in the moment, aware of her body as never before, connected with an inner strength that seemed to guide each of her movements. Upon reaching the end of the runway, she did something that wasn't in the script. Instead of the studied pose she had practiced, she simply closed her eyes for a second, took a deep breath, and then looked directly at the audience with a genuine smile that lit up her entire face. It wasn't the calculated smile of a professional model, but the radiant expression of someone who has finally found herself. The applause intensified, and when Lily turned to return, she could see that some people had stood up. Upon returning backstage, she was greeted by the hugs of her companions and a gesture of approval from Carmen, whose eyes shone with pride and perhaps also with contained tears. But the show wasn't over. Following tradition, all the models had to come out together one last time with the designers for the final ovation. When the complete group appeared on the runway, the audience stood up in a unanimous ovation. Photographers frantically snapped their cameras, trying to capture the historic moment, a show that defied all established canons about who could represent beauty and fashion. Matthew Torres, visibly moved, took Lily's hand, and together they stepped forward to receive a special applause. At that moment, Lily saw a little girl in the front row, about 7 or 8 years old, with a body similar to hers, who looked at her with eyes full of wonder and admiration. That exchange of glances, brief but profound, crystallized for Lily the true meaning of what she was doing. It wasn't just about her, it was about changing the narrative for all those who would come after. Backstage, the euphoria was palpable. Models, designers, and technical team hugged each other, some in tears of joy, aware of having been part of something transcendental. "We did it!" shouted Flora, hugging Lily with such force that she almost left her breathless. "Did you see the reaction when you came out? You left them speechless. Carmen approached them, her usual composure slightly broken by the emotion of the moment. "Lily, you were extraordinary," she said, taking her hands. "You did exactly what I expected. Show that true beauty doesn't need to apologize for existing." Among congratulations and photographs, Lily barely had time to process what had happened. When she finally could change and go to meet her family, she found not only her grandmother and her aunt, but also a small group of people waiting for her. Mrs. Sullivan, her boss from the boutique, who now looked at her with different eyes. Some neighbors from the neighborhood, and even schoolmates with whom she had lost contact. "My dear, you were spectacular," exclaimed Rose, hugging her with pride. Her Aunt Diana, a robust woman of strong character who had always been rather critical, had moist eyes. "You looked exactly like your mother," she said with a broken voice. "She always had that same light, that same strength. She would be so proud of you." The night continued with a reception on the hotel terrace, where journalists and special guests approached Lily to congratulate her and ask her questions. To her surprise, she found herself responding with a confidence she didn't know she possessed, speaking about the importance of representation and the need to broaden the concepts of beauty in the fashion industry. "It's not just about including different body types," she explained to a reporter from a national magazine. "It's about recognizing that beauty has always existed in multiple forms, and that we have been impoverishing our perception by limiting it to a single standard." At one point during the evening, Matthew Torres approached her with an unexpected proposal. "Lily, I want you to be the face of my next collection," he said without preamble. "What happened today on that runway was magical, and I want to continue building on that magic." Before she could respond, Carmen joined the conversation. "Actually, I have something bigger in mind," she intervened with an enigmatic smile. "We're planning a national campaign titled Beauty Without Borders, and I'd like Lily to be the main face." Lily's head was spinning. In a matter of days, she had gone from being an invisible saleswoman to becoming the center of attention in Portland's fashion world, and now they were offering her opportunities that she wouldn't have imagined even in her most daring dreams. Later, when the crowd began to disperse, Lily found a moment to escape to the hotel's upper terrace. She needed a breather, an instant of solitude to assimilate everything that had happened. From there, she could see Portland's main square illuminated in the distance, with the cathedral rising majestically under the stars. "May I join?" "You?" asked a voice behind her. It was Elaine, one of Carmen's assistants, who had made derogatory comments about her during the casting. Lily nodded cautiously. "I wanted to apologize," said Elaine, visibly uncomfortable. "What I said that day, it was cruel and ignorant. Today I saw how wrong I was." "Thank you for telling me," Lily responded, surprised by the sincerity she perceived in her words. "It's just that all my life I've been taught that there's only one way to be beautiful," Elaine continued, "and seeing you today on that runway made me question everything I thought I knew." That unexpected conversation made Lily understand something fundamental. Her triumph wasn't just personal. Each step she took opened a path for others to question the limits that had been imposed on them, both from outside and from within. The next day, Lily woke up with the feeling of having lived a dream. But the notifications on her phone confirmed that everything had been real. Her Instagram profile, previously practically inactive, had gained thousands of followers overnight. Local and national media shared images of the show with special emphasis on her participation as the main model. A message from Flora made her smile. "Have you seen the newspapers? We're stars. Check your email." Carmen sent the official proposal for the campaign. Indeed, in her inbox, she found an email from Carmen Villanueva with all the details of the national Beauty Without Borders campaign. It was an ambitious project that included photo sessions at different emblematic points across America, interviews with national and international media, and a series of workshops for young people on self-esteem and body acceptance. The contract they offered her was generous, much more than she had ever earned at the boutique. As she read the details, Lily felt a mixture of excitement and vertigo. everything was happening so fast. She decided she needed her grandmother's advice before making a decision. She found Rose in the kitchen, preparing hot chocolate as she did every morning. The old woman seemed more energetic than usual, humming a song as she stirred the pot with the traditional wooden whisk. "Grandma, can I talk to you for a moment?" she asked, sitting at the table. "Of course, my dear," Rose replied, serving 2 steaming cups. "Is it about that proposal Miss Carmen made you?" Lily wasn't surprised that her grandmother was already aware. Rose always seemed to know things before being told. "Yes, they're offering me to be the main face of a national campaign. I would have to travel, give interviews, be a kind of spokesperson." "And that scares you?" Rose asked, observing her carefully. "A little," Lily admitted. "A week ago, all I wanted was to go unnoticed, for people to stop looking at me and judging me. And now? And now they're asking you to put yourself in the spotlight, to let them look at you, but this time on your own terms," the old woman completed. Lily nodded, once again surprised by her grandmother's insight. "You know, your great-grandmother Ruth, the weaver of ceremonial garments I mentioned yesterday, had to make a similar decision," Rose said, taking a sip of chocolate. "In that era, Native American women couldn't show their designs outside the community. It was considered that this art was only for internal use, for ceremonies and traditions. But she saw an opportunity to show the world the beauty of our cultural heritage, and she took the risk. She was criticized, of course. Some said she was selling what was sacred. But today, thanks to women like her, Native American textiles are recognized worldwide as works of art." "What does that have to do with me?" Lily asked, although she was beginning to sense the answer. "Each generation has the opportunity to break barriers in its own way," Rose explained. "Your great-grandmother did it with her weaving. Your mother did it by getting an education when few women in her environment did. And now you have the opportunity to do it by showing that beauty doesn't have just one face or one form." Lily reflected on those words as she finished her chocolate. She was part of a lineage of women who, each in her own way, had defied the high expectations imposed on them. "I'm afraid of not being up to it," she finally confessed. "What if I become a novelty, something passing that people applaud for a while but then forget?" "That will depend on you, my dear," Rose responded wisely. "If you see it just as an opportunity for yourself, perhaps it will be fleeting. But if you see it for what it is, a platform to change the conversation, to inspire others, then it will be lasting." That afternoon, Lily accepted Carmen's proposal. She didn't do it impulsively, but with full awareness of what it meant and the responsibility it entailed. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. The photo sessions took her to emblematic places like the Grand Canyon, the beaches of California, and the vineyards of Napa Valley. At each location, Lily posed with creations by American designers who, like Matthew Torres, were betting on celebrating diversity and reinterpreting traditions with a contemporary look. The interviews were perhaps the most challenging part. Fashion journalists, television hosts, and content creators wanted to know her story. At first, Lily felt uncomfortable talking about herself, but soon discovered that she had a lot to say. "I'm not here for you to accept my body," she declared in a particularly viewed interview for a national channel. "I'm here to question why we've taken so long to recognize that beauty has always existed in diversity. It's not about inclusion, it's about correcting a distorted vision that we've had for too long." But what gave Lily the most satisfaction were the workshops with young people. In middle and high schools across the country, she shared her experience with adolescents who struggled with their own body insecurities. She didn't offer magical solutions or empty motivational speeches. Instead, she created safe spaces where they could express their fears, question imposed standards, and begin to see themselves with new eyes. 3 months after the historic show in Portland, Lily returned to her hometown for a special event. Carmen had organized a photographic exhibition titled Bodies That Speak, with images of all the models who had participated in that first show, accompanied by their personal stories. The inauguration was an important cultural event, with the presence of distinguished figures from the artistic, political and social world of Portland. But for Lily, the most significant was seeing Mrs. Sullivan, her former boss, enter, accompanied by a girl of about 12 who seemed amazed by everything she saw. "Lily, I wanted to introduce you to my niece, Camilla," said Mrs. Sullivan with a different smile than the one she used to show her at the boutique. "She hasn't stopped talking about you since she saw your photos in the magazines. She says she wants to be a model like you." The girl, of similar build to Lily, looked at her with eyes bright with admiration. Lily bent down to be at her height. "Do you know what's most important to be a model, Camilla?" she asked sweetly. The girl shook her head, expectant. "Recognizing that you're already beautiful exactly as you are now," Lily responded. "Everything else comes after." That night, as the exhibition filled with visitors, Lily found a moment alone in front of the largest photograph in the display, herself on the runway with Matthew Torres's dress, captured in the exact instant she had closed her eyes at the end of the walk, that moment of connection with herself that had preceded her triumphant smile. Carmen approached silently, placing herself beside her to also contemplate the image. "You know what I like most about this photograph?" the director commented, "that it captures the exact moment of your transformation. Not the external transformation, but the internal one." Lily nodded, understanding perfectly what she meant. "At that moment, I stopped seeing myself through the eyes of others," she explained. "For the first time I was really seeing myself. And that, dear Lily, is the most powerful revolution," Carmen smiled. "The one that happens inside, in silence, but changes everything else." As she toured the exhibition, greeting guests and answering questions, Lily reflected on the extraordinary journey traveled in such a short time. It wasn't just about having gone from invisibility to public recognition, nor about having found a place in a world that previously seemed forbidden to her. It was about a much deeper and more significant transformation. She had learned that her body wasn't an obstacle, but a vehicle, not only for her own expression, but for changing paradigms that affected so many others. At the end of the night, when most of the guests had left, Lily went out to the cultural center's courtyard to get some fresh air. The Portland sky, studded with stars, seemed especially bright that night. Her phone vibrated with a message. It was from Flora, who hadn't been able to attend because she was at a photo session in Europe. Who would have thought that two insecure girls at a casting would turn into this? "I'm so proud of us. Let's keep changing the world, friend." Lily smiled, putting the phone away as she raised her gaze to the stars. Her grandmother Rose always said that the stars were the eyes of our ancestors, watching over our path. She wondered if her mother Hope was seeing her now, proud of the woman she had become. "It's not just about me," Lily thought with renewed clarity. "It's about all of us. Those who came before and those who will come after. Those who were invisible and those who will be seen. It's about rewriting a story that for too long has been told by voices that don't represent us." And with that certainty in her heart, Lily Ramirez returned inside, ready to continue telling her story, not just with words, but with every step she took, with every space she claimed as her own, with every gaze she held without lowering her eyes. Because she had learned that beauty wasn't an empty word, but a silent revolution, and she was just beginning to lead that revolution. Dear listeners, we hope that Lily's story has deeply moved you. To continue this emotional journey of transformation and self-discovery, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories that explore the challenges and triumphs of self-love. Find it here by clicking to your left. If this narrative about the power of authenticity and beauty in all its forms resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day, we bring new stories that celebrate diversity and invite us to question the limits that society imposes on us. Have you ever felt invisible or judged by your appearance? Have you found your own silent revolution? We await you in the comments to share your experiences and continue weaving narratives that represent us all.